Hello everyone, welcome to today's Crowdfund Sport webinar. My name is Kirsty, I'm one of the coaches here at Crowdfunder. I think we're just getting everybody logged in at the moment. You can see the attendee numbers going up, which is a brilliant sign. So yeah, our first webinar for Northern Ireland. So by the end of today's workshop, you should hopefully go away knowing a bit more about crowdfunding, how it works, how it can benefit sports clubs in particular, and of course learning more about Sport Northern Ireland's Project Reboot Activate Fund to prepare you for crowdfunding for your sports organisation. At the end of it, the webinar today, you're going to be sent a link to a platform for online learning, which we provide as a resource free, so it's well worth having a click onto that. So we'll remind you at the end as well, so it will help to just consolidate your learning from today. Before we kick off, just a couple of housekeeping points to cover off with you. So timing, we've got 30 minutes scheduled for the content of the session. Well, we have allowed another 30 minutes at the end for any question and answers or questions that you have. We'll cover off as much of those, many of those during the session as we can. So please feel free to type any questions you have into the chat box on your right-hand side. And as I say, we'll pick those up at the end. We're working from home still, so bear with us with any broadband issues. We don't anticipate any, but you just never know. And should you lose connection at all, usually just refreshing your browser will reconnect you. If you hear any noises in the background, you know, just forgive us. We were all used to it by now, I think, any doorbells and such like going off in the background. Finally, obviously, just for anybody who hasn't got to grips with webinars yet, you can see us, but we can't see you. So today we're going to hear from actually a couple of guest speakers. We've got Chris from Sport Northern Ireland, who will join us in just a moment. You're then going to hear from Chloe, our crowdfund sport expert at Crowdfunder. And we're also going to hear from somebody who has actually recently crowdfunded for their sports club and hear all about his experiences, so which is always a bonus. So without further ado, Chris, are you there? Would you like to join us on screen? Tell us. Hello.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. I'd just like to welcome everybody here to our first crowdfunding session for Northern Ireland. Great numbers, which is brilliant and shows there's a real interest in this programme and clubs going through the crowdfunding process, which is great to see. I'll not take up too much of your time, so I'll go through very quickly a wee bit about the Activate programme, which is the second strand of our Project Reboot. And we had Team Up, which was launched at the start of the year, and Activate's our second strand. The programme itself came out from a couple of pieces of information from the sports sector in Northern Ireland. So the club survey and then our COVID consultation exercise, which really highlighted that the sports sector wanted programmes that helped foster partnership, increase links with the community. They wanted innovation and more importantly, they wanted to build resilience within the sector going forward, so they're better prepared for things that come out of left centre like COVID-19, etc. This is a completely new way of working for Sport Northern Ireland and how we distribute funding. It's something that our colleagues in Sport England have been doing successfully for a year or so, and they've launched and gone through a number of funding programmes, and it's worked really, really well for the sports sector in England, and they've got really good feedback. Ourselves and our colleagues in Sport Wales are just about to embark on crowdfunding programmes. So, as I said, Activate's our first dipping our toe in the water for this. For you guys online, I suppose a few key takeaways. Firstly, it is completely new and innovative in how we're going to allocate fundings, how we're going to make decisions, and how we're going to distribute funding. We hope to do this on a weekly basis. As there's a lot of people online who are veterans of funding through Sport Northern Ireland, it can be a long process with us. We're hoping this will be a new way of working, a change of behaviour, how we can turn things around really, really quickly, be agile and give sports the decisions. As I said, with society now, people want to be in control of their applications. They want to see how things are progressing, and they want to monitor things. And they don't want to put an application form in and wait a considerable period of time to get a response or progress. We're giving sports the opportunity to review and change their funding program. So if they come in for assessment and it's not quite over the line, we're giving you guys real-time feedback on a weekly basis to change it and come back in for assessment, which is a big behavioural change for us, because once you put an application form in, it's in and you can't touch it. But we're offering you guys the opportunity to review and change it if it's not quite over the line for getting support. So from our perspective, we're trying to find ways to fund as opposed ways not to fund. It's a really simple criteria. You know, you got to be eligible, which again is on our website. The usual standard: sports club, a charity or a community organisation who has a focus on sport and physical activity. It has to be COVID related. So the program itself or the project you're looking to do has to address an issue or a problem which COVID has thrown up and has really impacted on your sport. Reduced numbers, you know, people not coming back to sport, or how you're trying to attract priority groups in. And the priority groups are, again, are our standard, you know, young people, disabled, people from high areas of social deprivation, women, etc. And there are a number of other priority groups, but again, you can get it on our website to get that definitive list. And then the final thing we're looking at is your crowdfunding campaign, which is our campaign page, which is probably the big area of assessment. And we're trying to get sports, rather than to think of applying to us as a funder, but you're trying to apply to get people to part with their money, you know, people that want to support you. So we're not looking for the big information on demographics. We're not looking for the big information on strategic fit for wordy information. You're trying to really showcase your project, trying to really showcase your club, trying to really show how it's going to benefit your community and people within the surrounding area, and how it's real. The project is going to add real value, and trying to get people to support it, you know, from the community and beyond, because this is a worldwide platform. So we're trying to change the behaviour from Sport Northern Ireland and trying to move things really, really quickly and be quite agile. It's 50% support up to a maximum of £5,000. And I say, if you raise more than your target, that's great. But the maximum we can give is up to 5k, and what you've asked for, the 50%. Some sports have asked, is there a closing date? There isn't. This is open all year. There's no closing date. When the money runs out, the money runs out. But as I said, we'd expect everything to be completed by the 30th of June 2022. As I said, it's important that you take your time, get your campaign page on point, get your reward scheme, get your video, your images, so it's really, really attractive for people to support your project, and not to rush in, you know, because there's no closing date, you know. COVID related, again, you know, how you're trying to get people back into sport, how you're trying to get volunteers, if you've got an issue, and how this project's going to address it. We also have our colleagues from Crowdfunder here, and Chloe's online, and she's our crowdfunding coach, which is great, because yes, it's new for you, but it's equally new for us. But Chloe works with the sports sector in Sport England and Wales, and she's the key point of contact if you're having any problems with uploading stuff, or you want some support on your reward scheme. She's there to support you. And we also have our Project Reboot email address as well. If you have anything you're just not quite sure about the nuts and bolts of the program, we're here to help. As I said, we're here to try and support sports, trying to help reasons to fund as reasons not to fund. But look, it's new for us, new for you, but hopefully this will work really, really well, and a lot of really good projects will get supported through this. So that's all from me. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thanks for that, Chris. Great introduction to the fund, and yeah, it's a brilliant opportunity. As Chris mentioned there, Crowdfund has been working with Sport England for a while now, and now we're so glad to have Northern Ireland and also Wales on board. And the person who's been working most closely with all those sports projects is Chloe. So I'm going to bring Chloe on screen now, and she's going to run through what crowdfunding is all about.
Hello, Kirsty. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. You okay?
Yeah, really well, thanks.
Yeah. So I'm just going to leave you. You'll run through a little bit and tell us more about crowdfunding.
Yeah, Absolutely. So crowdfunding is a great way to raise both money and awareness for your organisation. So you'll start by setting up a page on our online platform. You'll then promote that page to your crowd or community, and those that want to support you or perhaps fancy one of your rewards will make a pledge to help you reach your goal. As Chris mentioned, don't worry if you're not too tech savvy or you're completely new to this. We're not, and we are here to help you every step of the way. On top of that, the platform is really easy to use. It's a case of filling in some boxes. So please don't be put off by learning a new platform. It's super simple. So the key thing to focus on when you're creating your page is, who is your audience? Don't fall into a trap of simply creating a page for your club members. They're already the most likely to support you. So the key to a really good campaign is to make it attractive to anyone that might land on your page, anyone in the community. So personally, I would start with adding some nice big bold headings, like you can see in this example project here. I would separate it into sections a little bit about your club, you know, a brief history and who benefits from your club. Talk about the different teams. Also talk about how the community as a whole benefits from your club. Perhaps other organisations use your facilities as well. Or maybe the clubhouse is a great place for the community to get together and grab a beer after work. All these things are reasons for the whole community to support your campaign, and that's really what we're looking for. Next up, and this sounds a bit obvious, but tell us why you're crowdfunding. So as Chris mentioned, for many of you here, that will include how COVID has impacted your club financially. It's been a really expensive time for sports clubs, but not everyone knows that. Not everyone understands the financial implications of running a sports club. So lay it out for them, explain how it's been expensive and why you need to raise those extra funds. And finally, tell us how you're going to spend the money. As a potential supporter, you're more likely to pledge on a campaign if you can see the direct impact that your financial contribution is going to make to the club. So now you've got plenty of information on your page. You want to make it engaging. And the best way to do that is with images and videos. You can add videos and images throughout the text, again, like you can see on this page here. Your main video is the first thing that people come across on your page. You want that to act as an elevator pitch. It can be 1 to 2 minutes. It's all you need to say the main points of your campaign. This is who we are. This is why we're crowdfunding, and this is how you can help. Having a person speak to the screen tends to be more effective. People connect better when they can see a person and see the people that they're helping. And likewise with images, include images of people enjoying your facilities and enjoying their sports. Again, people are going to connect to it more. And it also makes it more shareable because those featured on your page are going to be more likely to share it with their personal networks too. So now you've got a lovely, engaging page with lots of images, lots of detail on there. The next thing I want to talk about is rewards. So here at Crowdfunder, we are the top rewards-based crowdfunding platform. That means on top of the standard donation that you'd perhaps associate with traditional fundraising, you can offer something in return for a pledge. And you can get really inventive with these. The obvious ones will be the sport-related ones, you know, coaching practices, perhaps memberships, but you also want to think about that wider audience, those that aren't necessarily interested in your sport, but could still make a pledge to help you reach your goal. So speak with local businesses, talk to club members, see what can be donated to be used as a reward. On this slide, I've just used a couple of examples of rewards that I've seen over the past year. So you'll see discounted fish and chips. You don't have to be interested in sport whatsoever to want to claim a bit of a bargain fish and chips voucher. Likewise, we've got conversational Greek lessons, which were offered by a club member who happens to speak fluent Greek. Again, you don't need to be interested in sport to pledge on that, but it will help you encourage more people to pledge on your campaign. And it's worth noting as well, the average donation on a campaign is £10. If you compare that to the average pledge on a reward of £50, you can really see the value that rewards can add to your campaign. Another feature that we have here at Crowdfunder is the multiplier. So this allows people to fundraise on behalf of your project. This is an example of a club that's just done this. Spencer Lacrosse Club set up their main page, and they used the multiplier function and had 44 individuals campaign for their project. So they all set up a mini fundraising campaign attached to that main one. Everything that they raise will go towards the club's target. So this is really popular if you've got some individuals that want to do a sponsored run, for example, and help their club reach their goal. Likewise, if you've got different teams in your club, it can be a really nice way to add a bit of a competitive element to see which team can raise the most for their club. And as I say, everything that they raise will all combine together on that main project page and count towards your project target. So as Chris mentioned, we've teamed up with Sport Northern Ireland on a really exciting initiative to help sports clubs bounce back from the financial effects of COVID. Each club can receive up to £5,000 towards their project target, and that will go onto your campaign page. It will be visible there, and you can use it to motivate the crowd. So let me show you how that's going to work. You'll set up your campaign page with all those lovely bits that I've already mentioned. When your page is looking good and you're ready to launch, you can send an application through to Sport Northern Ireland. You'll do this on Crowdfunder through your dashboard. You'll see that button that I used in the last slide there. You'll click apply for funding, and it will send through the application page and your project page to Sport Northern Ireland, who will have a look through there and decide whether they're happy to be supporting you. If your page isn't quite there, you might get an email from them saying, we want to see some more rewards, add some images, and we'll have a look at it again. So do make sure your page is as full and as engaging as it can be before sending that application through. So then you'll start crowdfunding, and once you reach 25% of your project targets and at least 25 unique supporters, that's when you'll see the extra funding go onto your page. And you can make a real noise about this. You can celebrate this, shout to your crowd about it, because it's exciting news, up to £5,000 on top of what you've raised so far. You then need to go on to raise at least 100% of your project target in order to secure that extra funding. So again, when you're talking to your audience about the extra funding, make sure they know you need to reach your target to hit that. It's a real incentive to get them sharing, to maybe pledge again, maybe get pledge on one of those rewards. And once you've hit 100% of your project target, everything you've raised is secure. You can sigh a little bit of relief, but you don't have to stop there. You'll set your duration for your project. And if you've not finished, you can carry on crowdfunding. You can add a stretch target and continue raising more. So stretch targets are a really good way of avoiding your campaign looking complete and encouraging your crowd to continue supporting you. Now, you guys are all at an advantage here because sport crowdfunds really well. And that makes sense to me. Crowdfunding is all about the community coming together and cheering for a common goal. And I think the same could be said about sports. So this is just a selection of the clubs that I've worked with over the past year who have all successfully crowdfunded and kept their clubs alive. And you'll see I've worked with everything from cricket to rugby to gymnastics to speed skating. I learned what kendo was. It doesn't matter what sport you practice, you can crowdfund for it really successfully. That's all from me for the time being. Kirsty, I'm going to hand back to you.
Thank you, Chloe. Great examples there. And I think what really helps in these situations, especially when you're new to crowdfunding, is having a look at those examples. And also now is a great opportunity. I'm going to introduce somebody who has actually crowdfunded and hear about their experiences. So that will hopefully just back up what Chloe has told you. So welcome to Matthew Grant from, and you crowdfunded for Gateshead and Whickham Swim Club. And you raised, as it says there, £16,320, a great amount towards your clubs. So a huge well done on that. So do you want to just kick off by just telling us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, I'm the treasurer of our swimming club, Gateshead and Whickham Swimming Club. Took the role on in March 2020, wonderful timing, and of course straight into the pandemic. The key to our fundraising was that our swimming club has always run its own galas, 2 or even 3 a year. And typically we raise about £16,000 of money from those galas, which help us to meet our running costs, basically. Clearly, from March 20 onwards, we couldn't run any galas during the pandemic, so we basically lost 2 years' worth of income. We needed to find new sources of funds to replace the gala income that we'd lost, so we can still cover our costs. So that was the idea.
Brilliant. And what made you turn to crowdfunding?
So I became aware that other swimming clubs in the Northeast had carried out successful crowdfunding projects to raise money for the same reason, to replace the income they'd lost because they couldn't run their own galas. Particularly Newcastle swim team, they raised over 20,000. Richmond had raised 16,000. I then attended one of these, a crowdfunding webinar, which Chloe was on, I remember. And following that, I felt confident we could run a similar successful crowdfunding project. So I proposed it to our committee, and we then decided to go for it.
Great. Yeah. Okay. And that's how it happens, I think, a lot of the time. And it's especially important, as you mentioned, to get the committees on board with these projects as well, so they can actually move it forward, isn't it? So, so what did you find most difficult about crowdfunding, first of all?
Well, for us, in fact, the most difficult thing was we set our target of £16,000 to raise on the assumption that we would be able to get a contribution of 50% from Sport England, because at that point in time, when I'd looked at other swimming clubs, they had achieved that 50%. So I assumed we'd get the same, maybe a bit naively. And then when I found out the contribution we could get from Sport England, for good reasons, there was criteria in place which I wasn't fully aware of, that we only got 30%. So all of a sudden, the amount that the club had to raise went up from 8,000 to 11,200. So that was a real stretch on what I was expecting. We had to work very hard to raise that extra 3,200, and really it was only because we were able to secure some large donations from a few individuals that we managed to hit the target, because it was a lot more that we had to raise ourselves. So that would be that was the biggest kind of hurdle we had to overcome in the end.
Yeah, big challenge. Okay, and so we'll maybe come back to actually how you did that in a moment. But what was the best thing about crowdfunding for your club?
So I think the thing which made the biggest difference to us and worked the best was we organised a challenge for our swimmers and some of the parents of the swimmers to collectively walk, run, cycle or swim the distance from Gateshead to Tokyo, which is 5,760 miles, obviously for the Olympic Games. And that was in a 2-week period during the Easter holidays. So we used the multiplier facility that's within Crowdfunder to enable each of those people who are participating in this Tokyo challenge to set up their own funding pages, which were then linked into our main crowdfunding page. This meant they could each have their own personal target to raise funds, as well as a target to record X number of miles, to achieve X number of miles towards the overall Tokyo challenge. It also enabled them to design their own individual crowdfunding pages and share them with their friends and family. And some of them really did a great job with that, really innovative, TikTok type stuff, very impressive. The Tokyo challenge itself then generated a lot of interest from the swimmers. We had 31 who participated in it, including myself, each creating their own child crowdfunding pages. We raised over £5,000 from that route. So that was nearly as much as what we raised from everything else put together. And the individual fundraising pages for the participants and the collective effort to hit the mileage target of Tokyo, I think that really captured the interest and imagination of many of our swimmers. It really motivated them to do extra, to do the miles, swimming, cycling, walking, whatever, but also to get sponsors for their personal target. I've got my target 300 miles or 200 miles or whatever it was, we wouldn't have hit the target without that either. I'm sure of it. So overall, we also raised 2,250 from the rewards that we put up on the main crowdfunding page. There were some of the rewards were purchased through the child crowdfunding pages, and the rest, about 4,000, came from individual donations on our main page. So that's how it was made up to get to our 11,200.
Yeah, brilliant. Great news. So I mean, really, I was going to ask you about the multiplier effect. So you had 31 fundraisers in total, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Was that? Yeah. And so you'd have had the club members. Did the families of the club members get involved in that as well then? Yeah,
they did. So we promoted the idea of doing this sort of upfront before the actual crowdfunding project started, if you like, before we actually opened the page, and we kind of try to encourage swimmers particularly to get involved, but also if parents wanted to get involved as well, they could join in on their child's crowdfunding page to add to the miles, if you like. So some of the parents participated as well as supporting their children. Of course, the parents helped the kids get the pages set up, although I think often the kids were better than the parents were. We did then, during the course of the challenge, we produced league tables every 2 or 3 days of the miles that were being achieved and the funds that were being raised by each squad within the club. So we had a league table sort of a performance. So that generated some healthy competition across the squads. Yeah. The other thing I think which helped was I produced a simple step-by-step user guide with screenshots to show the parents and the swimmers who were doing their own pages how to set up their own page. I used my own individual crowdfunding page as the sort of basis for that, because I did that first straight away. So I was able to take screenshots as I went through that to show them how to do it. And that sort of helped get people, they weren't like put off by the technology because it was an easy idiot's kind of guide to show them how to do it,
Yeah, well, that's really good. A good tip there. And so other than the financial benefits that came from it, what other benefits did you find came from the campaign?
Well, it raised the profile of the financial issue that the club had experienced because of being able to run our own galas. So it got that out there. It was quite a clear sort of issue, entirely COVID related. People got that. It enabled the swimmers to get involved in our fundraising challenge themselves, even if they weren't necessarily making the donations themselves, because obviously they're kids, but their parents were, their grandparents were, uncles and aunties and friends and stuff. And I think it also motivated them to do more exercise in the school holidays when we were just starting to get back to swimming. So that was helping them get fit again. It also enabled more parents to support the club by two things: by donating their time or donating some items, which were offered as rewards, as well as of course, purchasing rewards or making a donation. So there was two ways they could help out. Yeah. It also allowed some local businesses to donate items as rewards. It's like a free meal or a free a golf round, 4-ball, that kind of thing. And obviously the parents would buy those, or friends of parents, relatives of parents would buy those things, which of course helps promote those businesses, so they get a chance to promote their product to a wider group of people. So that worked quite well both ways. Yeah. And the last thing, one of the rewards we offered, which is obviously specific to swimming, but there might be something similar in other sports clubs. Our head coach offered one-to-one coaching for 5 swimmers, kind of 2 sessions, and our sort of deputy head coach, he offered 1-to-3 coaching, which ended up being taken up by about 10 swimmers. So those sessions have obviously helped to develop the technique of several of our swimmers, including myself. I have to say I went through it, and I've definitely had a benefit from having the one-to-one session with Paul, and I've got another one coming soon. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Sounds like you had a great load of success with those rewards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and finally, so what bit of advice would you offer to somebody who's just about to start crowdfunding?
Right. I've got lots of these. They're all quite short though. So, first of all, obviously going back to what I said earlier, be prudent in the assumption about what you're going to get from Sport England, the percentage contribution. I wouldn't assume you're going to get more than 30%. Even if other clubs in your sport might have achieved more, there are some very particular criteria to get the maximum 50%. You've got to hit all the criteria. And we didn't hit all the criteria. So, and I didn't know that, in advance. I didn't know what the criteria were, so I just did my best with the submission. So be prudent in what you assume, because you're going to have to make the rest up, basically. Many of the rewards will probably relate to the sport that your club does, but try and ensure you identify and secure a good range of rewards for your page, which are not just about swimming. Things that will be of interest to people who might look at your crowdfunding page, might not be interested in it, in something to do with your sporting activity, but actually, oh, I'm interested in a 4-ball voucher for a golf course, or a meal at a local restaurant, or whatever else it might be. Have a look at the types of rewards offered by other clubs on their crowdfunding pages to get ideas about what you could offer. There's loads and loads of them available, obviously, from the ones that happened in England. I did that, trawled through them all and picked out ones I thought we could do, and then sort of talked about that with the committee, and then gave that as some examples to get people thinking. Also, proactively ask your club's members if they can offer up any rewards to the crowdfunding page that others might want to buy. So it's items that they don't want, they can give away, but somebody might want to buy it, or it's something that they could provide their time to do something that somebody else might want to pay for, typically. Engage local businesses early to get them to offer up items as rewards, which the parents or supporters of the parents will purchase, but stress that will also help them promote their businesses. So we had a fitness trainer who, a local fitness company who offered 2 free fitness sessions and managed to sell both of them. Obviously, we put them at a price which was discounted from what their normal was, but they'll hopefully have got some new people coming in and continuing with their business beyond the month that it was free for a month kind of thing. Yeah. The Sport England assessor, who, well, in your case, Sport Northern Ireland, of course, but the person who will review the crowdfunding page, they'll want to see a number of rewards being offered by local businesses as well as individuals. And there's also a good range of rewards. They're very keen on seeing that businesses are supporting it. It's kind of one of the criteria they look for. So kind of think about that well in advance. And linked to that, I would really strongly suggest you allow yourself a lot of time to prepare your crowdfunding page. It takes time to identify, agree, and write up all the rewards that you'll need to have. It also takes time to write the narrative and to produce your video and all the photographs and so on. And you'll go through lots of iterations of it before it's ready. Don't rush it because you really want to be sure that you've got a lot of rewards that people are going to go for quite quickly. So you get off to a good start, and to do that, you've got to get them agreed. You've got to get them in there. I do think the user guide that I did to help create the child projects made a difference using that multiplier facility, because it helped the people who were setting up the child projects to work through the steps quickly, saving them time, because I actually wrote a sort of draft narrative that they could just cut and paste, for the individual projects. They just had to put their own name in and their own personal target, but everything else was a sort of cut down version of the main one that I'd already written. So it meant it was taking people 10-15 minutes to do, as opposed to they might have spent an hour trying to think about the words to write and stuff, or a couple of hours, and some people just haven't got time to do that, to be fair. Yeah. When you plan the period over which you run the project, I just think this is quite a good thought. Consider things like when people typically get paid, i.e. at the end of a month. So we made sure our project straddled 2 month ends, so we knew we had an opportunity to push it again after the second payday of people at the end of April, if you like, of this year. And provide, obviously, as you go through it, regular updates to all your supporters on the progress towards the target and on the rewards that are being offered, because you can add new rewards throughout the period when your page is open, and you can then publicize those as part of your update. We've raised this much, there's 5 more rewards coming on this week, have a look at these, you might be interested in these. The other thing you can do with the rewards is, as you go through ones that haven't sold or haven't sold well, you can drop the price. Ones that haven't sold at all, you can drop the price. You can't drop the price if you've sold a few, because that's not fair to people who've already bought them. But if you've got so much haven't been purchased at all, you can say, right, let's just drop the price and publicize that as well. We've got some further discounts on these ones, on these items. So all those things can help keep it going, keep the funds growing during the course of the period. Actually, another thing, I made a few donations myself, and I didn't do them all at the start. I kind of dropped them in every so often, so that it kept it going at times when there wasn't much happening. So that helps kind of keep the total rise and keep the interest going. And then a big push at the end. A big push, if you're not there, clearly you need to make sure people know that you're not quite there, and try and get people to kind of rally around in the last 2-3 days. And that certainly helped us to make sure we hit the target. I think that's it.
You've become a coach yourself. That's brilliant, though. There's some brilliant tips in there, and yeah, well worth highlighting all of those about rewards and then keeping the momentum going and such, like during the campaign too.
Just a thought. I've written all that out as a sort of Word document to help me kind of do it. If you want me to send that through to Chloe, then and you could. If people wanted that, I'm happy that to be distributed to whoever asks for it. So you don't have to, if you haven't managed to keep up with me talking, and you'll get the notes in the format, in a Word document.
Yeah, great. I'll leave that one between yourself and Chloe. That's brilliant. Great. Thank you for that. Great. So we have got lots of questions that have come in. So I'm going to invite Chris and Chloe back on the screen. Hello.
Hello.
So I can see from the chat box that, Chris, you have actually answered directly, I think, some of the questions that have come in already. But I think it might be quite beneficial if we run through them for everybody else to know what's been asked and actually that haven't been answered as well. So I am just going to scroll through these questions that have come through and just put them to relevant people. To the right here, first of all.
Just want to thank Matthew for presenting today. We really appreciate giving up his time and telling us the crowdfunding journey. We really do appreciate it. I hope the next time we do the training, we won't have to rely on you to come and present, and that we have some Northern Ireland clubs that will be able to showcase their successful crowdfunding campaigns. But listen, we really appreciate it, and listen, thank you very much for giving up your time.
You're very welcome.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's start from the top. So we had a question earlier from Gordon. Is the value of the support available based on cost of project? Chloe or Chris, do you want to pick that one up? I think Chris,
I'm assuming by support you're referring to the amount offered by Sport Northern Ireland. So I'm basing it on that assumption. So the amount that Sport and I will support your project with will depend solely on your project target. So if you set a target of £10,000, you can receive up to £5,000 from Sport NI, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, our ceiling's £5,000. It's £5,000, so that's the maximum, or 50%. So a £5,000 project, 2.5 would come from the crowd, and 2.5 comes from us. But if you have a £15,000 project, the maximum we would be able to allocate is £5,000.
So Donald asked, how quickly do funds get paid out from both Crowdfunder and Sport Northern Ireland should the project meet all the criteria?
So when your project closes, the funds will be sent over to you within 10 days of your project closing. You will need to fill in a funding wallet in order to secure the extra funding. So it will come through in 2 different chunks. So if you get the crowd pledges first and the extra funding hasn't come, it's on its way. Don't worry.
Yeah, sorry, I'd put 5 to 7 days, so I was obviously wrong with that. So, but yes, it'll be very quick compared to the normal snail speed which we allocate money previously. So it'll be 10 days. Yeah.
Okay, so John asked, will Crowdfunder support capital projects such as facility modernisation?
This is not a capital programme. We've sent a link. We do have a capital programme that has been launched in the last week. So I've sent a link on the chat bar, but it's on our website as well. So we do have a capital programme currently live, which will be a traditional Sport Northern Ireland funding programme, and it is for capital refurb, looking for lawnmowers or looking for upgrades and facilities, etc. So that is currently live, but this is a revenue program, so it's we're trying to improve, we're trying to get more people back into sport, trying to help you develop volunteers, coaches, trying to get young people, women, disabled people, ethnic minorities, etc. back into sport. It's not capital.
Great. David asked, could 2 or more sports teams get together and run one crowdfunding campaign, or does each have to run its own campaign?
I would recommend doing it separately so you can get 2 chunks of Sport NI funding. If I were you.
Yeah. I was going to let Chloe answer that one, because I wasn't 100% sure what the value, as you said, you get 2 bites of the cherry if it's 2 applications.
Yeah, exactly. I would recommend, if you know another club that wants to take part in the initiative, doing it together, 2 separate campaigns, but going through the journey together can be really beneficial. You can share ideas, this worked for me, try this out, or don't bother with that. And it definitely helps if you've got someone else that's going through that experience at the same time. But yeah, I would definitely do 2 individual campaigns to make the most of the extra funding.
Okay. Now, I had a question from Emma Louise, but I think it might have been answered. It's slightly differently worded. You're just wondering if updating club equipment would be funded, or would that be classed as capital?
It depends what it is. I mean, I think I gave Emma Louise our contact number. I'm quite happy to chat offline regarding that. We can support bats, balls, bibs, and cones, but it needs to be linked into a COVID-related project. So there needs to be a wee bit more unpacking of that, but I'm quite happy to pick that up with a phone call this afternoon.
Question for yourself, Matthew. Did you find it easy to set up your page?
Yeah, it's not difficult. It takes a while because of the content you have to develop, and how you structure it. There's quite a few sections to complete. And obviously you want to put some thought on it to try and make sure you've sold it as best you can to the people who hopefully are going to contribute. And there was obviously iteration of the page. I drafted it, and then the exec committee looked at it, and I think we shared it with the wider committee as well before it went live. So but it's not difficult. It's the site works really well.
I think that's a really good bit of advice, sharing your draft page with other members, with the committee, with your friends and family, to say, what do you think of this? As someone outside of the club, would you pledge on that? I think that's a really useful little tip there, especially someone that's not connected to your club. If they're not going to read through it, what's the chances of the rest of your community? That's a great way to get someone else's perspective, and you'll have a link to share your preview of your campaign before it's live to do so.
Eugene asked, does money that you get match the money that's donated up to 5,000? For example, if your target is 2,000 and it's met, do you get 2,000 added?
So it will be up to 50% of your project target to a total of £5,000. So if your target is, do you say £3,000? Then if the target's 3, you'll be eligible to up to 1,500 from Sport NI, and you'll have to raise at least 1,500 from your crowd.
And what happens if a club falls just short of its target?
Firstly, you won't, because you'll be speaking with me every step of the way, and we won't let it happen. However, if it does happen, you won't secure extra funding from Sport NI. The crowd pledges, we've got 2 options. So when you set up your campaign, you can either choose to do a keep what you raise funding method, or you can choose all or nothing. Both of them do what they say on the tin. So if you go for keep what you raise, you keep anything you raise from the crowd. If you go for all or nothing, you have to reach your target in order to secure any of that funding. People ask me, why on earth would I choose all or nothing? Because it's scarier, let's face it. But actually, it's a huge incentive to both you and your crowd. If you're just shy of reaching your target and you're going to miss out on everything, I guarantee you're going to find that extra little bit to get you over the line.
Great. And that kind of answers the next question from Helga, but there might be a little bit of in here you want to add in, Chloe. So Helga asked, in the worst case scenario, you don't reach your target within your timescale. She knows that she understands you wouldn't get the match funding, but does the pledged money get returned to donors?
Yeah, so that would depend which funding method you're on. If for any reason you're worried about not reaching your target and the closing date is nearing, please get in contact with me. We can talk about possibly an extension, although we try and avoid that if possible. And I will share loads of tips with you. We can go through what you've spoken about. We can talk about your strategy. I am here to help you, and I can't stress that enough. So if there's any concern, just get in touch with me.
Okay, a question for yourself, Chris. So from Connor, he says, our sports season runs March to October. He's confident that they'd raise the 5,000, but he's not sure they'd get the project away by the 30th of June. Is there any flexibility on the 30th of June spend date?
I'll probably come back to him, Connor. So I'll reply to you in the chat bar. At the moment, everything has to be done and dusted by the 30th, but I'll have a chat with you offline just to get a bit more detail on your project and see how we can work with you.
Great. Let me just see, we've got one from Brona, but I'm not sure if we've actually answered it. Brona's asking if the crowdfunding can support revenue costs associated with design fees, various technical studies for planning, so in readiness for capital projects.
No,
it's kind of classed the same thing. Okay. Mavis is asking, we as a football club would like to have a long-term lease from a council ground. Would this be a crowdfunding pot that would work? So, nope.
Not for covering long-term leases. No.
And what about the hire of facilities?
Yep, that's eligible.
Yep. Brilliant. From Herbie. And another question from Rona. Once the target of the campaign is reached, i.e. matched and 5,000 is secured, can the crowdfunder page stay open for future fundraising?
So you'll have to set a specific end date to it. And once your end date ends, your campaign will close. But you can come back again if you want to fundraise with us again. You're very welcome to come back and apply again to Sport NI. So we're not going to stop you coming back. But crowdfunding works best if it's done in a short, snappy period. So we don't want it just to be never ending. You want to use that urgency to your advantage to motivate your crowd and make lots of noise and run a really exciting campaign.
And for yourself, Matthew, you talked about you used the multiplier effect and you had all your fundraisers. Did your fundraisers become quite competitive?
I think some of them did, yeah. Especially the squads that were doing the best. I think there was definitely an element that we're going to outdo our rivals. It certainly helped, yeah.
What else have we got? Marie, just a random question in here. Can we have a possible to have this webinar forwarded? Yes, Marie, but this is being recorded. You'll receive a link to the recording afterwards. Another one from Donald. What are the fees involved for using Crowdfunder? Our club would be not-for-profit based.
So not-for-profit fees, not-for-profit organisations don't pay platform fees at Crowdfunder. We've completely waived those for not-for-profit organisations. So it's just our transaction fees of 1.9% plus 23p per pledge. If I can get all that out.
Great.
It's my terms and conditions, boys.
And Chris is asking, is there any requirement to have an active lease in place? For example, if your project involves development to the ground, is that one of the criteria of an active lease in place?
If it's development of the ground, if it's capital works or facility maintenance, that wouldn't be eligible for this program. Again, we have a capital program which is currently live, and again, you can find the information on our website, which has a capital program for facility maintenance, capital works, if you're looking to refurb toilet blocks, etc., that'll be our recommendation to go through that program.
Okay, and Helga has asked, if it's more successful than expected, can you increase the amount that's requested from Sport Northern Ireland to be 50% of the new total achieved rather than the original target?
So your stretch target won't affect extra funding. So the amount offered by Sport NI is based on your initial target alone. If you're more successful than you anticipate, then great, add another stretch target. You can keep going, you can keep maximising the amount from the crowd, but it won't change the amount that Sport Northern Ireland are offering.
Final one from John. Transaction fees, if the fees take the total raised below target, is the crowdfunded payment held back? That wouldn't really happen.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think what's been asked is so the fees are deducted at the end, if that then takes you to under achieving your target, does...
No, so hitting your target is what's on the page, and then fees will come out afterwards. It's not an upfront fee or anything like that. It will come out from the amount you raise.
So I suppose it's maybe worth noting that just be aware that those fees will come off at the end. So even though the extra funding is tied to the overall amount that you raise, you need to be aware internally that those fees will be deducted before you get all of that money paid to you, to just sort of build it in maybe, into the target.
Yeah, factor it in when you're thinking about your target. I think setting your target is something you really want to pay a lot of attention to. You want to be ambitious because you want to maximize the amount from Sport NI, but you also want to make sure that it's achievable because you want to make sure that you hit your target so that you can achieve what your project set out to do.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's all questions. I think we've covered lots of individual questions of what would be covered, what won't be covered in terms of project types. But I think you pick up individually, either with Chris, with Chloe, or just have a look at the criteria on the page. You'll get a good idea of what you can apply for. So thank you very much to Chris for joining us, and to Matthew for talking about your experiences. Chloe, I think, is just going to finish off telling us what the next steps are.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone has a better understanding of what crowdfunding is and how it can help your club. The next step, like Matthew said, do some planning, do your research, and get yourself in a position where you're going to run a good campaign. And the best way to do that is to join our online learning platform, which our moderator, I'm sure, will post in the chat box. This is an online course that takes you through the steps of planning, creating, and running a successful crowdfunding campaign. It's got lots of videos, it's interactive, it's got little quizzes in there. So it's the best place for you to start on your crowdfunding journey. As I say, if anyone has any questions, any concerns, wants to run through some ideas, I am here to help you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me as well on chloe@crowdfunder.co.uk.
Brilliant. Okay, so just remains to say thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks again to our panel, and best of luck with all your crowdfunding projects.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.